Hello. Today I'm going to be making a card with the Poinsettia Petals stamp set, and we'll be using the Tasteful Labels dies. I'll be using this larger die here, and I'm going to emboss that with the greenery embossing folder. There's two folders here and I've labeled them. And I'll be using some watercolor paper, and some balmy blue is my card base, and I've already gone ahead and made the inside of the card. And we'll be embellishing with some blue adhesive back gems. And I've already die cut the label and embossed it. I'll be using that. I have cut out 3 of the leaves from the dies that come in this stamp set. I have 3 leaves and 1 set of the poinsettias and 3 of the berries in silver foil. And I'll be using a piece of this metallic mesh ribbon that is in the holiday catalog in the Halloween section, actually, and I'll be using a piece of that on the card as well. So to get started, what I'm going to do is take my watercolor paper and I heat emboss the sentiment on the front. This is part of the stamp set here. And so, may the magic and wonder bloom this holiday. And I'm going to take a drop of the balmy blue ink and put it on this little dish as my palette. So it only takes a drop of the ink. By the way, I just want to say that when you're watercoloring, probably the best value for your money would be to buy re-inkers. They're only $3.75 for a bottle. And of course you use them to re-ink your stamp pads, but they're excellent for little bits of watercolor that you'd like to do because the colors match. And that's part of what Stampin' Up! is that all of their colors match. So I have a cup of water here, and I have a large brush. This is a Zen brush from Royal Langnickel, and I just dip it in the water and put it in the blue ink that's on my palette, and I'm going to get a little bit more here because I want it to be a very light, soft blue. I'm going to bring in a paper towel and set my card on that, and it will buckle the paper. I'm just going to kind of swish it all over because I just want the paper to be a very light, soft version of the balmy blue. And so I'm just going to spread it all over the paper like this. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to set it aside to dry. And using a paper towel underneath catches the edges of the ink when it rolls off the paper as it kind of bends, and it will flatten out when it dries. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then I heat embossed the sentiment before I watercolored it, but you can do it after, but you just have to wait for it to completely dry. So here's one to use today that's already dried. I did this one earlier. And so we'll work with this one. And I'm going to take my card base, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach this to the card base with some glue. So glue will hold this thick watercolor paper down. probably better than tape because sometimes tape has a tendency to pull up. But if you have some of the heavy-duty tape, you could use that. It's whatever your preference is for attaching your card base. So I'm just going to turn it over and give it a rub, and then I'm going to set that aside for a minute while I work on the poinsettia petals. Okay, so there's the front of the card so far. Okay, so bringing in the pieces that we'll be using, I'm going to take some all-purpose ink. This is the shimmery white, the frost white that's in the catalog. And I'm just going to shake it up a little bit, and I'm probably just going to go ahead and work from the lid, since by shaking it you get some in the lid and you don't need very much. I'm going to take a paint dauber or an ink dauber and just put it in the lid and take some of that ink off of there, maybe take some off the edges of the bottle itself, and just go around the edge of the poinsettia flower. It doesn't take very much. You just want to kind of wet the edge of the leaves, and you probably cannot see it on camera, but it has a little bit of white to it and a lot of shimmer. So just go all the way around and do that. And I'm going to do that to all of the leaves. I'm going to shake this up a little more so that I can get some ink in the lid. So just go around all of the edges. Oh, I think I've got more on my fingers than I'm getting on the petals. But with all projects that you're playing with ink, it can get a little bit messy. That's okay. Our hands are washable. Okay, so, and it doesn't take very long to dry. So just set them aside. Do the little centers here, and I'm using there are two dies, and I cut both of them out, two of the smaller dies, so that we can build up the flower and have a little bit taller center in there. Okay, so that's for those. And then I'm going to take just a tiny bit of the balmy blue. I might just take the water that I have here actually and just sop it up on a separate dauber. And I'm just going to barely do the edge of the leaves. I don't want them to be too blue. I want them to be soft like the background. I don't know if you can see that. And I might have to put a little more. You can see it up against the other white paper that it's got some on it. But very, very subtle. So that kind of cleans up the palette and uses the rest of that ink as well. It's nice to use just a little dish when you're just working with one color. If you have the ink pads and you prefer to use the inside of the ink pad as your palette, that works as well. But sometimes when you ink it up and you use this as your palette, oftentimes it gets pretty full of water. And before you close it up and put it away, I would sop that water up with a paper towel rather than let it set and then reconstitute it later at another time. Okay, so moving right along, let's bring our, set these aside a little bit and let them dry. And I'll bring in our card front, and we'll start building our background for our card. So I'm going to put the poinsettia up here like this. So I'm going to position my embossed vellum, and I'm going to put glue on this and see if it'll stick to the watercolor paper. I mean, I'm going to put this at an angle like this, and I think that should stick pretty good. Then for the shimmery silver ribbon, I'm going to get some glue dots and just stick that down with a couple of glue dots in the middle, which will be underneath the poinsettia. You won't see it at all, but it'll hold that ribbon down. So go like that, and put the ribbon down. And if you have to trim the ribbon a little bit, that would work as well. Okay, so let's see. Let's kind of figure where we're going to put our leaves. I can never figure out the leaf, which way it goes. Probably about like that. So let's glue this one down. And I'm going to have it go towards the corner there. And then over that, I'm going to put one of these silver berries on top of that. About like that there. And let's see, maybe another of the leaves down this way. I'm going to kind of fold it a little bit. Maybe one there. And put the other one here. Let's see how that's going to look. I think that might be nice to do it that way. On second thought, I'm thinking that this vellum really doesn't show, but it does give a subtle background. I was thinking maybe I should have put it on top of the other way around, put it on top of the ribbon, but it'll be fine. We'll just do it this way. So I'm kind of doing this on the fly as we go, designing it on the fly. So let's add this leaf here. And let's add another one of the silver berries, silver foil berries, right there. And then this time I think I'll put the berry underneath the other leaf. So let's put that one down here. It's about like that. And then I'll add this other leaf right about there. Okay, so it's kind of coming together. So then I'm going to take the poinsettia petals and let's start with the largest one. Just put some glue in the center of that, and put it down. And then the second one. And the third one. And then the two small ones. I've used blue because I think we're all going to probably have a non-traditional Christmas this year. So I thought that it would be nice to maybe make something that's not green and red, but a little bit different. Then to embellish this, let's use the blue adhesive backed gems. These are in the recent catalog, and I think I'm gonna use these darker ones. Isn't that pretty? Nice and shimmery. And then maybe a couple of small ones. Okay, so my rule of threes, so I'll just leave it at that, even though one's part of the flower itself. Okay, so there is the finished card, and I have an envelope I've made for it. I've just stamped it with some of the poinsettias, and of course the inside of the card. And that's my project for today. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed this.